Welcome to the Biz To Biz Podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of B2B Vault, the Biz To Biz Podcast, sponsored by Nationwide Payment Systems here in South Florida. My name is Alan Kopelman, also known as the Merchant Maverick. I'm one of the foremost, experts on merchant services since I've been doing it for 25 years. And today we have a guest on the show who's also a business partner with Nationwide, Matt McTeague, who's from Extreme Marketing and Booth Point. And Matt does a lot of interesting things. We've run across each other at the adult shows over the years, and adult nightclubs have unique needs, as far as what they need in their club. And there's a lot of things going on in the adult industry right now. We're going to dive in and talk to Matt about that today. So Matt, introduce yourself to the B2B listeners.
Yeah, well, as you said, it's Matt McTeague. I've been in the adult entertainment club business for 20 plus years. Started with the infamous Extreme magazine, got into publishing that, covering 13 states in the Northeast. Got us in pretty much every gentleman's club in that area. Moved on to the Extreme 401 strip club finder app that covered the whole country for many years. Was free on Apple and Android, and then we expanded to full digital marketing with Strip Club Marketing Pros. Handle everything from SEO, website, social media management, photography. And then, the main thing that we're talking about today is our Booth Point software that we have distribution rights to in the United States, Canada, Mexico, which is specifically for gentlemen's clubs. Covers, that encompasses every aspect of POS, dancer management, staff management, etc. Co-paired with the original software of CoverJock, which kind of takes over the DJ position in the gentleman's club, calling the girls up, calling them down, bringing up playing the music, etc. So, been doing this for a long time. We got a lot of experience in a lot of different fields of this industry. As Alan, as you mentioned, yes, it's
so
very specific.
No, but I'm saying like every year, and then the emails that you get from the people who put on the adult show, there's constant, oversight on clubs, and clubs are constantly getting sued for everything from advertising, dancers suing clubs over their hours that they worked or didn't work, all kinds of different lawsuits. And, this is subject matter, and going to these, the adult nightclub show every year, they call it the Ed show, right?
Yeah.
Erotic dancer.
Yeah.
And I always thought it's funny that it's called ED.
ED, right? Yeah, I know. It's like you first think of when you hear that.
Right. You think about the ED show, it's erotic dancer, not ED.
A bunch of men with limp dicks walking around.
every year at this show, and I've been to it probably over a dozen times. The show over the years, every year, I would say there's always a discussion about lawsuits. Okay. And so one of the things we want to dive into today is recently there's a lawsuit, you can Google it, 2 Denver strip clubs were, in a lawsuit, was over, $14 million. So tell us, and clubs need protection. But one of the things that I find, and probably Matt has the same discussions with people, is when you're buying, a point of sale system, or you're buying some sort of management system, these systems, like Matt's system, is designed to protect your business, and it's important, business owners need to protect their business and not be cheap on technology, right? Because when you're cheap on technology, you're not protecting your business, whether it's your alcohol, for your alcohol sales, food sales, hours people are working, even a regular restaurant we've seen get sued over, hourly wage and tips and all that. So let's talk about, dive in, Matt. Talk about
Yeah,
how
and I want to
your
kind of
software helps
expand on,
clubs protect their
yeah, well,
business.
what you just said too, not only just being cheap on technology, but just being, we see a lot of anti-technology, right?
Right.
People want to stick to writing everything on a piece of paper at the end of the night, which can get lost, or you're not able to, verify, or you have, the dancer's stage name on there, not her legal name. So how can you prove that this money was given to, so and so? You can't,
Right.
right? You know, and these lawsuits are going around everywhere. They've been going on for what, maybe 10 years now
Oh yeah, years.
for this
And
misclassification.
and
And
another thing like your software helps us when you talk about paper. I've gone into clubs that we'll do the credit card processing for, and you'll see they'll have like a clipboard in the office that has a picture of the girl's driver's license or ID and just a piece of paper filled out. And if the police, ICE, or the human trafficking people show up, they go, okay, we want to see everybody who's working. And you're handing them a clipboard. Why not just hand them over an iPad?
yeah, everything's right
And go
there,
here, or your phone and go here. Look, here's all the people in the club, and they can walk around and
Yep.
talk, verify who's
Have
there,
everything
their
in one
ages.
spot. Yeah, our
Huh?
software has that ability to have the scanned IDs, passports, contracts, complete records of their work history, when they clocked in, when they clocked out, what they did, etc. And, not only does it save you paperwork, but it saves you time trying to track your paperwork internally too,
Right.
sitting there adding up receipts at the end of the day. But, going back to the lawsuit, yeah, it's, something's going on a lot. And, with this recent one that you just mentioned, it's not just dancers, it's, DJs, house moms, which is kind of another level to this that wasn't there before either.
Right.
Um, so not only does our system help, with the dancer end, but now you have a DJ software that can essentially replace a DJ. You don't have to worry about him suing you, But going back to the dancer end of things, um, when they do these lawsuits, the lawyers rely on the fact that you are a club that just has a stack of paperwork and you're not organized, right?
Right.
They rely on you're not going to be able to prove when this entertainer was there, how much you paid her, when they were paid to the T, what they did for that, etc. A lot of people, a lot of clubs just have, oh, she did 10 dances. When did she do them?
Right.
How long were they each? How much was she paid out for each? What time did she clock in? What time did she clock out? You know? So with our software, you're able to, one, be able to see exactly when she clocked in, she paid a house fee, not when she clocked out. You're able to see exactly what time she went into every room, what her splits were, whether it's lap dance, VIP, etc. And she gets a full Z read printout at the end of the night that she can have a copy of, sign, approve, and the whole nine. You know, and this is proven fact with one of our clients who actually had to face and settle a lawsuit recently. They got hit for 3 years of back wages for dancers on misclassification, and they've had our software for the last 2 years. So they were able to go in there and show the work history for every single dancer that was part of that lawsuit, as far as what they were paid, when they came in, exactly, how much work they did, etc. And because of that, they were ordered not to have to pay out for those 2 years of using our system. They only had to pay out for the first year, which is a saving grace for a lot of these clubs. And this is, one of the first times that this has been able to really happen in my knowledge. Um, so making that, yeah, like you said, making that investment in technology and protecting yourself is, you know, uh, kind of a proven fact here.
I think
And
kind of the next move for clubs is going to be not just giving the dancers and employ other employees that are contractors cash, but probably switching to a more electronic type of a system for that as well. And even though they don't really want to do that, I think that it's going to be necessary if people want to stay in business in the future.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And especially too, you have a younger generation that doesn't carry around cash anymore either. And
Right.
they're starting to fill up these clubs more and more, and it becomes an inconvenient on top of, you know, trying to cash management and record everything, but then now maybe you're potentially losing customers for not having that ability to take cards, or you're a cash only business, right?
Well, I'm talking about like paying out the employees, like getting all, like I've talked to clubs and they're like, for years we didn't send out 1099s to the dancers and the other 1099 people. We didn't do
Yeah.
that. Now they're doing it. It's like I talk to people all the time. I'm like, if you're a 1099 worker, right? What doesn't matter what you're doing. You're a dancer, you're a DJ, you're an entertainer, you're selling, you're a salesperson, right? No matter what, you should just incorporate and have that person pay your corporation, right?
Yeah.
And then that way you have some corporate protection yourself, even if you're a single person. You have this corporation veil, and you can deduct better ways to deduct like your expenses, your
Yeah.
phone, your outfits, your whatever it is that you need for your
Yeah.
job,
Makeup,
and be
hair,
able to,
nails, all part of it.
right.
Yeah.
You could deduct a lot of things and probably save a ton of money, even though maybe you weren't paying so much taxes before, or no taxes or whatever.
Yeah.
You're able to at least control and better and have, pay less tax, because you're operating as a business versus operating as a sole proprietor,
Yeah.
a sole entity, a person with on your social security number.
Yeah. And
And
having,
that might be how these businesses have to do things moving forward and see changes. We also talked about like human trafficking, right? It's a huge subject. And
yeah.
your software records and authenticates people's identification, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it also tracks work visas and things like that. If a visa is expired, it won't let you clock in. Give a warning that you need to supply a new one before, next 7 days because it's going to expire, etc. You know.
And that's super important because human trafficking is a huge, thing in the news all the time. We talked about a club that got raided recently in Tampa, and
Yep.
the owner or managers were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, and they do
For
have those what down there in Florida where you guys are, they do have that law in place where you do have to have everything on file, right? They have to come if they
Yes.
come in there, you have to be able to present every single dancer's information on file, you know, and that can be complicated if you're sitting there with copies of things, whereas our system will have a whole list of them all right there, with all their information you can print out for them if you needed to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was talking to a club owner once and they were like, yeah, they closed us down for like an hour and a half, 2 hours in the middle of the rush. And we're in there scrambling around trying to get all the, everybody's copies of IDs. People didn't have their ID on them. They
Yep.
had to go find the copies in the office. And, that can create a bit interruption of your business, for different types of things, and also protecting against lawsuits. Nobody likes lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly. And the loss of revenue having to close down like that. When you brought that up, and kind of remind me of another point as well about our system is our system is in-house, so it's not in the cloud. Where I've ran into clubs that are dealing with other systems that are cloud-based, but in today's day and age, your internet goes down. With your credit card readers, you're still able, you have your data lines that you can still chime into and process, but your POS, you can't sell drinks, you can't do anything like that. I had a club out in Rhode Island. Saturday night, system went down for 2 hours. They couldn't sell anything out of their bar, because it was all cloud based.
Yeah, whenever we put in point of sale in clubs, we always talk to the business owner. We're like, listen, you need to get a router and where you can put a prepaid 5G, 4G, 5G card in it So
Yep.
it's a failover. It knows like, oh, your AT&T or your Xfinity went out, Comcast, and then it fails over to the prepaid card that you have linked to your cell phone, and you put $50 on it. Most places like never use up the whole $50.
Yeah.
And if you get low, you set it to like $10. Then you just go, oh, you add more money on. This way you're not paying a monthly fee for that, the
Yeah.
card
For
if
the
you're
data
not
line.
using it all the time. But
Yeah.
for a couple hours, you're probably only going to use $5 or $6 worth of data,
Yeah.
but you're going to stay open. And you can't be cheap today. People need to learn, invest in technology. Technology is here to help your business, save your business from lawsuits, save your business from aggravation. Nobody wants aggravation.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's just it's time to adjust and adapt, or otherwise, you had mentioned prior that in a previous conversation that a lawsuit like this and the lawsuits just close down the business, can completely destroy the business, and just for you not wanting to, adapt and change the modern ways.
Yeah, well, I was telling you that story. There was a dancer union, and it's in California, and they went after a lot of clubs there, and the clubs that were like paper, pen and paper,
Yep.
they were getting sued for millions of dollars, and we saw like 5 clubs go out of business because they had no way to protect themselves. They probably weren't in the class, didn't have the money to even begin to pay that out, right?
Yeah.
So they just end up that what do? They close the doors, sell the real estate, and move on to something else.
Yeah.
And it's all could be stopped with technology.
Yeah. Yeah, being able to embrace the new ways and getting familiar with it, and getting comfortable. And even if you're not comfortable as a long-term owner, some of these guys are not,
Right.
having some people on staff and entrusting the younger generation on staff to kind of guide you and direct you in the right direction, and embrace it instead of combating it, which we tend to see often as well.
No, definitely. Technology is kind of I always tell business owners, they're like, oh, well, my employees don't, we installed a pizza shop with a point of sale a few months ago, right?
Yep.
And you know, the the owner of the pizza shop said, "Oh, some of the employees are complaining about the point of sale system." I'm like, okay, like then I get a call from him and he's like, "Well, it's really interesting." And I say, "What's interesting?" He's like, "Well, my food cost hasn't gone up, but my sales have gone up."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I hate to say this, but a point of sale system can really put a stop to people doing things like, stealing from you,
Yeah.
or, you know, and floating drinks, or, in a pizza shop, somebody walks in and they're paying cash and they're getting 2 pies. And, the cashier, nobody's watching, puts $20 in their pocket. The same thing can happen in a bar.
Yeah.
If you're not keeping track of your inventory and making sure what you're doing, and the same thing, everything, what's the biggest, someone was asking me the other day, what's are the biggest expenses, in a restaurant bar? I told them rent, rent is a huge cost. I would probably used to say like your liquor and food was next, but I would say today your next biggest cost is labor.
Yeah.
And you need to manage your labor, whether they're hourly labor or your entertainers. All your labor needs to be managed
Yeah.
properly.
And you bring up a good point there, because I've heard a lot of times when talking to some clubs, they're like, "Oh yeah, we have a digital POS for the bar, but our lap dance and VIP rooms are still just cash drawers, right? Or
Right.
old school registers." But you know, the bouncers and dancers have that relationship, and they'll work together, and be skimming thousands of dollars out of your club, and you don't even know it. you know? And now you got a system in place that's a POS specifically to track dances, can have a timer, clock down. We even have little restaurant buzzers that'll buzz off when the dance is over so they know it's time to come out. and kind of track it to the T where it's like, okay, I can see this person's in this booth on the camera, but it's not being registered in the POS. So what's going on? At
Right.
that point, you have a security that just pocketed $100 for a VIP and the girl's doing her own thing. So it's definitely a great loss prevention tool for sure. And
And the other thing is a lot of these clubs that we're talking about, the owners are not there running the place on the day-to-day basis. They're not in
Mhm.
there, 24/7. In a lot of cases, they're entrusting everything to their managers to be running these places, and having having a good system is going to help you, control exactly what's going on in your business.
Yeah. And like you said, being able to see that revenue increase that really was already there, but you just weren't getting it.
Oh, believe me, listen, we're involved in all aspects of, different types of things in business, from, like even ATM machines. We had a club owner one time. We went to their club and we're like, oh, how much money do you make off your ATM every month? And he tells me $500. I go, $500. I go, come on. I says, I'm sitting in here for 2 hours. I said, I don't know what kind of report you get, but you need to let us do the ATMs in at least one club, try us out. They tried us out. We paid them $3,500 the first month. The guy's like, you're taking over all our
Wow.
clubs, you know? And people don't understand. Like, we give them the report from, we give them a full blown reporting, everything. You gotta be, everything's today, it's all recorded, right?
Yeah.
It's all recorded. You need to make sure you're maximizing everything that you have, in your business, keeping track. But lawsuits, let's, the whole thing with Matt's product is, you're having your contract. They're signing the contract. You have a record of it. It's not a paper record. It's electronic, stored on your computer. You obviously do people back it up to the
Backups,
cloud
yeah.
or
Our
back up to
system
an
automatically does a backup every day for you.
right. And then
Yeah.
you have law enforcement come in, or somebody decides to give you a lawsuit. You go, okay, well, we have all kinds of records. Here you go. Boom.
Yeah.
And and then what are they going to do? The lawyer, once the lawyers start to see that clubs are not on a paper system and they're on an electronic system, they're going to start to not want to do these lawsuits anymore. That's what it's
Yeah.
going to come down
Yeah.
to.
Because
They're
they're
going
going to
to
be losing money on them now.
right.
They're
So when
not going to be able to
somebody
win them.
Yeah, when somebody sees even a restaurant, right? I've seen restaurants get sued because they have a point of sale system, but they don't have the waitresses, the waiters, the bartenders, hostesses. They don't have people clocking in and out on the system. As soon
Yeah.
as a lawyer sees that, boom, they go after them for not paying the staff properly,
Yeah.
right? Even in a restaurant. So in a club, it's much worse. That's why you have to have systems in there that are going to keep track of all the hours. People are
Yeah.
clocking in, people are clocking out, and if they're not clocking, in and out, you know, you can have problems if it's all on a paper system.
Yeah. And another thing that came to mind, you mentioning like, police visits and stuff like that. Another way that our system can protect the club is that the system's got all your built-in site visits, your police visits, what happened, incident reports, everything is there, along with refused entries. So, you can mark on your front door, this customer came in at this time, we did not let him in. That way, if he goes out and gets into an accident, it's like, oh, I came from the club. No, you didn't get through that front door, though. Here's when you
Right.
tried to come in. This was the time, and it'll be time stamped. If the police want to come check, okay, here it is. I just had a club have an incident, and they were able to just run back the time stamps on when things happened in the POS system, quickly check the cameras, and show the police what happened. And we're not, we're able to avoid any kind of issues.
Yeah, it's super important. Probably a lot of that stuff can be used when you're getting insurance, or you're renewing your license with the city, and the city's like, well, the cops are at your place all the time. No,
Yeah.
they're not. Here's our log. We log every time the police come out
Yep.
to our place.
You can log the
You
visits,
know, there-
everything. You can
there's
log
a
your,
lot, a lot you can do. What are you going to do? You're going to walk in there with your log book. They don't want to
yeah,
read that.
you're not gonna read through all that, but you push
Right.
out a PDF of all the, every day that something happened, it's all right there. You skim through it and good to go.
Right. Then, these electronic records are help save your business. Okay, so Matt, if people want to find out more about Booth Point and get Booth Point for their club, where do they go?
So you're gonna go to www.boothpoint.com. And there you can check out some online videos. We offer remote demonstrations, depending on your location. We can do in-club demonstrations as well.
And I'm going to also say one more thing about your software. So we have a few clients that use Matt software, and when they get a chargeback, the evidence that comes from Matt software is great. Never lose. We help them write the letters. We send in all the evidence, comes with pictures, and they never lose a chargeback.
There you
I
go.
will say that because we do. We have a couple guys that have your software, and when they send us they'll get a chargeback, and I'll say, "This, whatever, send me everything. I'll write the letter for you." Or we train them how to write the letters. We give them like sample letters.
Yeah.
Use this format with this explanation. Sometimes they don't want to do it. We do it for them, but the evidence you get out of Matt's system is excellent.
Yeah. Everything's right there, all the data you need.
Yeah, all the data you need, time-stamped pictures, time-stamped receipts, everything.
Yeah.
Works very, very well. Paired with the credit card, and then we get all the receipts for the credit card processing, but everything's like registered electronically, so it works great.
Yeah.
So check out Matt's software. Again, boothpoint.com, right?
Yep. You got it.
Yeah, get a demo book and check it out. And, you can get your, take the lot, reduce the liability you have at your adult business today. So I want to thank Matt for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me, Alan. Of course.
Yeah, you can catch the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We're on all the social media, and I appreciate Matt coming on as a guest today. And everybody have a great day. Peace out. Carpe diem from B2B Vault. Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.